What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here, and today you're tuning in for something exciting because in 2 weeks I have my first sanctioned event after taking a year off, and we're going to talk about what's in the bag for 2024. But before we dive in, have to ask, how are you doing today, Abner? Are you having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
All right, so what's in my bag? It shifts sometimes, but honestly, it doesn't shift all that often. And one thing that I want to start off with a caveat before we dive in is that a lot of times, especially this year as I'm playing more disc golf, I'm playing with discs that manufacturers are sending me and things like that. But I want to let you know that I play a decent amount of disc golf, or at least try to, with my actual bag so that I'm familiar with what's going on. So while some of the discs you may not have seen on camera in quite some time, intimately familiar with them because I go do field work. I try to practice what I preach here and try to make sure that I'm learning what I have in the bag and can work with it. So hopefully today's video has shots that you can see of me throwing the discs, as well as explaining some of the ranges and distances and reasons that I use the shot. With all that said, let's start with accessories. Let's start with the bag itself. I'm rocking the Atlas V4. The V4 just got restocked on Atlas's website a couple weeks ago with a bunch of new colorways. The Robbie C colorway is actually one that I'm rocking. This is a prototype though. We're gonna add a little more red to it. I think that we're gonna try to make these panels red and try to upgrade it, but I'll go ahead and let you know that we don't necessarily have a timeline. If we were like giving a rough estimate, it's going to be late summer for the next wave of Pioneer V4s is going to have the Robbie C colorway in it, this red and black. Absolutely stoked on it. We also have a pro bag that we're working on. So for me, I'm going to be balancing between when I'm playing events with the pro bag, but most rounds you're going to see me rocking this. Have some patches. Got the Mandalorian patch from my friend Wes. I'd rather be an Inverness from Iron City, and my Robbie C patch I actually gave to someone recently, so forgot to replace it. I have my chalk bag hanging on the side. Gotta love that. I have my foundation staff bag tag. I actually have the 15 tag, which is the highest tag available, because even though I don't necessarily place last at the weeklies when I'm up there, it feels a little rude to be that guy that rolls into town and takes the high tag and then leaves. But I've already told them this year, since I'm coming back a lot, that's not going to be the case this year. So let's talk side pockets. I've got my flight towel tail, my flight towel junior that clips on. I've got a couple minis in here. Hydro Disc Racks custom wood mini that I use most rounds. I have my Scout rangefinder from Atlas Disc Golf Supply. I have my keys and my wallet in here. I've got a couple of Sharpies. I've got a Dennis just mad chilling in there, because you never know you're going to need him. Then I have my double mini that I use when I don't use my wood one. It's got a Trash Panda mini on the inside and a Foundation mini on the outside. And then this is one of the coolest things that I ever got in a player's pack, and it is a 4-leaf clover that's been preserved. Really, really sick. So that's that pocket. And the far pocket, we have my Gooder sunglasses. Gotta love it. We have a kendama from the Kendama factory. I am not great with tricks, but I'm working on it. And so in backups and stuff like that, you know, we get damaing. So I got that chilling in the bag. We have a power bank and a power cord, because I love when people are like, oh, I can't keep score because my phone's dead. Joke's on you. Not an excuse for me. I've got headphones in case I need them, or I'm like walking around the course and I gotta take a phone call while I'm filming. I have an actual flight towel, a flight towel OG that has the fob. I have a Wraith fob, and then this one has the pockets. You use it to like warm up and get loose. If you want a flight towel product yourself, whether it's the juniors that I have clipped onto the bag, clipped on my tail, or the OG, or even the minis, flighttowel.com, Robbie C Disc Golf, code 128799. I've got another set of headphones. Honestly, I don't know why I have 2 pairs of headphones in there. Those are my old ones. They need to go away. I have an inhaler because I have asthma and I don't want to die while I'm on the course. And I've got stickers, so that if you ever see me on the course, you can get some stickers. There's your speed run. Those are accessories. You guys ready? Let's talk putters. We want to take a quick moment to talk about the sponsor of today's video, MudWTR. Believe it or not, I'm not the most friendly person in the morning, much more of a night owl, and I find myself often in early mornings searching for that energy alternative, and MudWTR has been a fantastic solution so that I'm not crashing later throughout the day or finding jitters from heavy amounts of caffeine. Now, there are plenty of reasons to choose MudWTR. Some people prefer it for the taste. For instance, you can mix it up with oat milk or honey, which take it to that next level beyond its already fantastic taste. Or you can simply choose it for its healthy ingredients. I know the mix of fantastic ingredients with several mushrooms being mixed in for a variety of reasons. I love the cordyceps as it promotes natural energy, because like I said, well, this manufactured things and all the other different energy drinks and coffee and soda options out there, do lead to that inevitable crash. And the cordyceps inclusion absolutely takes us so that we're not fearing the afternoon and we can still be productive with the rest of our days trying to get video and content out to you. Because after all, MudWTR is a healthy habits brand. It's built on being a coffee alternative so that you can use the 4 natural ingredients that make up the primary blend of this drink to help you find that energy you're looking for to get the lifestyle that you're looking for. Plus, if you find yourself on a diet or any restrictions like that, MudWTR slots in perfectly because it's Whole30 approved, it's 100% USDGA certified organic, it's vegan, kosher, gluten-free. It's a fantastic product that is completely restriction-free. Plus, something that's going under the radar is that MudWTR supports psychedelic research, and they have been doing this monthly since day one. They believe the country is in a mental health epidemic, and one of the best ways to help treat these mental health conditions is through psychedelic assisted therapy. So MudWTR is hooking up our viewers with a beautiful coupon opportunity. A discount code is available to you if you head over to mudwtr.com/foundation. That's MudWTR.com/foundation, and you can get MudWTR for you for less than $1 per cup per day. Y'all, this is a steal. So make sure you head over to mudwtr.com and all of these amazing benefits can be yours. All right, let's talk putting putters. I have 7 putting putters in the bag, but it's actually only 3 molds, and one of them is Halo Star. Not what you think, because Innova doesn't like Halo Star. So for the actual putting putters in the bag, we have Birdie Blend Wizards. I have 2 of these in the bag. These were a special blend that Gateway made for us. We have the Dennis the Duck stamp on them. Really, really wonderful. These feel fantastic. It's a super firm putter, which is exactly what I wanted and why they had to cook it up, but it has a good bit of tackiness to it, even off the shelf. And I can only imagine the more that these fly and the more I'm making putts with them, that the better this is gonna feel. Keeping that vibe going, we actually have a 3rd Birdie Blend Wizard in the bag that we are using for throwing. I'm a big proponent of like, don't throw your putting putters, just because, especially if they're base plastic and they hit stuff and they get chunked, it could feel bad like trying to putt with it. So I have a 3rd one in there, and I'm gonna be really curious to see. This one already has like a nice overstable flight to it, which is wonderful. I'll be curious to see as this season's in, because it is a base plastic, but it like has a lot of firmness that feels like a premium, how long it takes to season in and what kind of flight it has on the backside to see whether or not this actually like we keep using this slot and we use the seasoned one as well, like we're gonna cycle the pigs that you'll see here in a second, or if it ends up just being like they work and then I turn them into throwing putter, or like the putting putter practice basket. Let's talk pigs next. We have 3 pigs in the bag, and we're going to talk about another mold that slots in the middle of that. This is a straight pig that stays in the main compartment. This is Wes sent me this one. He dyed it. They call me Mr. Pig. So this one I can yam on, I can throw it, and it just rides really, really straight for a good bit of time. And then at the last minute, it's going to fade every single time. So why I go to this guy over this guy and where these 2 battle is they fill very similar slots, because they're going to push and then they're going to fade at the end, both of them. But the pig does not have near as much glide as the Wizard does. So if I want to just send one, or I need to carry over something, I know that this is going to have that fade and have a little more wind resistance than the Wizard's going to have, but I can forehand this one really comfortably. I'm not necessarily forehanding birdie throwing Wizard. So real utility here. It's probably, of my 3 pigs, it's definitely thrown the least, but there are moments where I just need a pig shot, but I need a straight pig shot, which takes me to the other side of the table, which is my overstable throwing pig slot. Right now we have an R Pro pig right here with the pig stamp. This was in the Robbie C subscription box. You may notice that the Halo Nexus pig is not in the bag, and that's because the big question we had for that was durability. And literally 2 weeks in, my Halo Nexus pigs were flying straight, and I was like overshooting baskets because they were flipping up on me. Our Pro Pig, I use this for overstable shots, whether they're backhand overstable shots or forehand overstable shots, is exactly what you think a pig would be. Anything 270 feet and shorter, I'm usually throwing this pig, especially on forehands. One of the reasons I went to the pig over other options is because at 270 feet, it still actually fades versus like an AVRX3, which goes really straight and then just falls. Now we have a polecat that is also in the bag, and the beautiful part about the Halo Star polecat is that anything like 250 feet or shorter really we'll probably say like 230 feet shorter to be safe. I can throw this and it literally holds whatever line you put it on. If you throw it on enough hyzer, it's gonna stand up a little bit, but then it's gonna fall back at the end. If you throw it on anhyzer, it's gonna hold that the entire way. It actually, on anhyzer, is its touchiest form because it wants to like be understable on anhyzer. But as you can see in the demonstration shot, I really yammed on this one and got it going straight, and it flipped up and rode straight. It didn't really turn over and it didn't really fade out. Just a beautiful throwing disc, and I use this for a lot of like those flick of the wrist approach shots as well. Fantastic disc. It's gonna be hard for the polecat to ever leave my bag, but it's probably the first on the chopping block when that birdie blend throwing wizard seasons in, because it's never gonna replace Precious Child. Precious Child is a pro pig. It's a 2020 Ricky Pro Pig. This thing is amazing. I wish you could like see just how puddle topped it is here on the camera. And when you see this pig fly, it stands up and has a little bit of turn to it. One thing that I really love, this is the understable pig. Straight pig or purple pig is straight but has a little bit of fade, and then the tattoo pig actually fades quite a bit. With just one mold from seasoning them and cycling them, we have 3 very different shots. Reason that I like this over the polecat, this is probably my farthest flying pig just because it's so understable. I can get this one up to 300 feet, but I'm using it once again for like 270 and shorter straight shots. The nice thing between these two options is that if I need a turnover anhyzer shot, like if I need a little bit of like movement, Precious Child's being thrown. If I needed a hold dead straight, polecat's being thrown. If I'm throwing an Annie that I am okay with burning over, polecat goes. But the beauty of seasoning in an overstable disc is that when you throw this on extreme anhyzer and it's like rolling up like that, it's never going to like burn all the way over like this one's gonna do. These all seem like they would have like very overlapping things, but it's the finishing motion, which is gonna be kind of the theme of the rest of my bag, that really matters, and how I end up cycling or choosing which disc I'm throwing. Now let's talk mid-ranges, and I'll go ahead and say that for all of my ranges, you're gonna notice that there's like a little 10-foot area that I say that one slot ends and that the other slot takes over. And for those, it's just kind of a feel thing. Like, am I gonna put a little, like a baby amount more on the putter than, or maybe take a tiny bit off of the mid-range? Questions like that. Is the wind blowing in those distances? Most of the time, I'm gonna be able to adjust accordingly. We have 5 mid-ranges in the bag, and this is actually the most molds probably represented across a category of any of them. And 2 of them are fighting right now, and we'll start with the Origin. The Origin is such a beautiful disc by Discmania. It is, for a newer player, going to be a really straight option that has some fade to it. You can flex it a little bit, but for me, especially this one, it's just a couple weeks old, has some easy turn to it. So there's a chance that a brand new Origin goes in the bag, because we are gonna be having some in the bag Origins dropping tomorrow over on foundationdisc.com. So there's a very real chance that a fresh Origin is gonna go in the bag, so this will eliminate a little bit. But right now, as a complement to the Origin, moving up on the stability side, this Robbie C Meteor from Discraft came back to us. This is the one that got launched into the lake. One thing that I really love about this is how easy this thing stands up every single time I throw it. For newer players, it's gonna have a little more overstability, but I love how easy this thing stands up. And the difference between the Origin and the Meteor is that the Origin is gonna have some turn to it, especially once it seasons in. It's gonna finish with that movement right every time, whereas the Meteor kind of finishes flat, or maybe a tiny bit of fade. If I don't get on top of it very well, it's gonna have just the tiniest little bit of fade. So I love the Meteor for that reason. I'm throwing each of these about 280 up to about 320. These are definitely my farthest flying mids, just because of the understability, and I love a hyzer flip. But that takes us to our next one, which is a slot that really, when I left open bag to go to Team Innova, this 1-2 punch of these 2 discs is one that I missed the most. I never found a replacement for it inside of Innova, and that is the reactor. This is a Treesist reactor dyed by Disco Dyes, and so Justin hooked me up with this one. This is a fission reactor coming in at 175 grams. You can throw this thing and it's gonna have a good amount of fade to it. It's gonna fly straight almost every single time, especially if you put any power on it whatsoever. It's gonna hold really straight for a fission reactor, and then it's always going to fade. it's gonna fade, it's gonna be fantastic. One day it will season in to stop fading, and at that point I probably am gonna go to like just one origin in the bag, and then have this slot down, put a brand new fission reactor in to complement, or things could shift because the 1-2 punch is that I have this electron reactor dyed by Galactus with my little Pikachus running, which is super fun, super cool. One thing I really love about this reactor is that it is going to fly straight and then have a big fade. I can throw little baby flexes with this. It's gonna fade out every time. If you're looking for that like reliable, overstable mid-range, you're looking for the pyro's too much, but like a Quake alternative by DGA, the electron reactor, absolutely it. For a while they were really hard to find, but there's a good bit of them. And then lastly is a utility disc, and that is this Justice by Dynamic Discs. I can throw this thing on so many different shot shapes. One of the ways that I love to throw it is I love to throw little flexes with it. This is one that I tried to replace with a Zone OS for a little bit. I tried to replace with a Terminal Velocity Ursus for a tiny bit of time. It's just one of those discs that I'm not gonna throw that often. I'm not gonna say that the Justice is my least thrown disc in the bag, but it is certainly not thrown too often. There are utility shots that it ends up coming for. It's a lot more of a scramble disc. This one is going like 270 to 290. I can yam on this and know that it's gonna get there. It's gonna hold straight and fade every single time. Really love this. I love to throw mid-ranges. Birmingham is very much technical golf with lots of elevation change. So we don't really have to pull out the distance drivers too often, at least here in town. So I end up like a lot of fairway shots if it's just a little longer than I can put my mid-ranges. So we have quite a few fairways in here, and the fairways I would say are the most influx in my bag, and that is because of the stalker. So let's start on the understable side and work our way up. We have on the very understable side, we have this purple Z Sting that you guys are gonna recognize from foundation videos. I love this. For a long time I have called this my overstable Sting, and I had ESP Stings in the bag. The problem is that those ESP Stings are super flippy, and as I've worked to like gain power and distance, those ESP Stings are like, I have to be very touchy with them because I can throw them on this much hyzer and they're rolling all the way over. And even the Z Sting with that extra stability is I'm hitting it and it's standing up and even having some movement. The Sting is coming out for me for anything from about 310 to about 360. If it's uphill especially, this is the most understable probably disc in my bag in terms of getting distance out of it. The Origin is probably more understable, but the Sting, really reliable. I can throw it on some easy turnovers, and you can even see a shot here of me demonstrating with a forehand. If I hit this thing with a lot of power on a forehand, it's just gonna end up rolling over. But if I find myself having to throw like a standstill, easy, just forehand, the beautiful part is this is my disc that's gonna stand up to flat, ride straight, even have a little bit of turn to it. Very easy get out of jail disc. I love that one. And then this is where it gets complicated because we have the ESP Stalker. This is my cotton candy stalker. This one, if I hit hard, hit with any juice whatsoever, it's gonna have some right movement to it, but it's gonna fade out of it every time, which is exactly what the Z Sting was doing before. And that's the beauty of cycling and as you gain power. So the Z Sting has shifted to the ESP Sting, and then this cotton candy stalker has shifted to where the Z Sting was. The hard part is that I pulled Z stalkers out of my bag because I heard that Discraft was discontinuing them, but then another source told me that they're also discontinuing the ESP stalkers. So I'm gonna need someone from Discraft to let me know in the comments below what's happening. Even if that's the case, there are so many ESP stalkers out there that the debate that I'm having is if it's worth actually keeping ESP stalkers in my bag and cycling them, because I'd imagine that I'm gonna be throwing this more than I'm throwing the Z Sting, which is gonna cause this to get even more flippy. When I'm throwing it, it's getting quite a decent amount of turn to it, especially if I hit it well. But it's still getting that fade, which is really nice. I actually have subbed in to continue that cycling a baby pink ESP stalker that's more of my straight option. It even had some right movement out of it, and this one's newer than the cotton candy one. So I think there's a world that I end up just cycling these. I also am thinking about doing a video comparing the Stalker to the Cicada, because the Cicada seems to be where Discraft's moving. So there could be a world that Cicadas slip into this slot. We'll see. The disc that I think is going to probably end up dominating, and I found it and I'm loving it, is the Passion. We got a Robbie C Passion in the bag. This is an ESP plastic. I have an overstable Passion. I have a flippier Passion than this in the Jawbreaker. And so I could also see a world that these Passions end up pushing the Stalkers out of the bag, because the Stalker, I'm going anywhere from truly about 320, 310, all the way up to like, I can get my Stalkers up to 370. The Passion, when I get a hold of the Passion, I mean, it's going 310 all the way up to 3. I have a 390-foot throw with it, and I've seen 380 pretty consistently with it. I could see a world that the Passion ends up pushing both the Stalkers out of the bag since it's readily available. The hard part with the Passion is that when thrown softer, at least because I haven't had one in the bag long enough to truly season it, it doesn't give me the same flight as the Stalker when it's a shorter throw, when it's closer to that 310 range. But the slot that is in comparison is it's hard to find with the Z Stalker being discontinued. I have this Millennium Vela in the bag, 168 grams, but you can see in these demonstration shots that it goes super straight, but it's gonna fade every single time. It's always gonna fade, which is exactly what I'm looking for. I like to think of this in like stages. So the Wizard, the Birdie Blend Wizard goes straight and it's gonna fade. Straight Pig goes straight and then it's gonna fade. The Reactors go straight and then they're gonna fade. So the Stalker and this Passion are the straighter options of that. This is like the Birdie Blend Wizard and the Birdie Blend Wizard and the Straight Pig. Also, like my Fission Reactor, this becomes that overstable to straight option in the Eclipse Reactor, just a bit longer. The Vela, I don't know that I can get like 360, anything more than 360 out of it. So anything further than that, and I have to have fade, I'm probably stepping up to a distance driver. So 310 to 360, reliable fade with some wind. The Vela's coming out. If I really need push, that is where I'm stepping up to the Felons. So first I have this Orbit Felon, Orbit Moonshine. This is one that I love to throw. I'm throwing it forehand mostly. Occasionally I'm throwing it backhand if I need some fade, but I usually am probably just gonna take the Vela and put it on a little more hyzer, because as you can see on backhand, it's not doing anything crazy. Forehand, the Orbit has a little bit of movement to it, so if I know that I want to yam it for a far distance, I'm throwing this on anything forehand related, probably from about 290 all the way up to 350. 340, somewhere in that range, and she is flying like a beaut. I love this. I love this run. It feels really good, even in rainy conditions. Well, in rainy conditions is not great. I'll just go ahead and say that. You got to chalk up and things like that, but really easy distance. If you're looking for easy forehand distance on that reliable overstable 9-speed, this is it. And then the Lucid X Glimmer, this is an Eric Oakley Lucid X Glimmer Chameleon. So many words to describe this, but this thing's a baby tilt. You can see every time that I threw this in demonstration throws, it just falls out of the sky. This is without a doubt the least used disc in my bag, just because it is so overstable. But in the right, when you get into tournament play and you're playing in windy conditions, this is a kind of disc that you're rarely going to use, but when the moment calls for it, you're absolutely going to need it. So flex lines mostly with this, but it rounds out my fairway drivers. If I'm going like distance with this, I really think that like max distance with this on a flex line, I can get like 330. All right, last but not least, let's talk about the big stick, the distance drivers, because this guy throws us so far. But not really. All my distance drivers, depending on the stability of them, backhand, nothing crazy. I'm going like 350 to 400 with each of them. It just depends on if I get a hold of them or not. So if we take a look at these, we'll start on the most understable side of things. This is a Fusion Raider with Darth Maul dyed onto it. This was a flippy boy already, and then it got lost in a lake by a friend Dakota for a little bit, and now it came home to me. I'm really excited for this. A couple weeks ago, I put out a video talking about the Strive filling the slot, but now that this is back home, such a beauty. Really, really grateful. If I really get a hold of it, it has an understable flight to it, like you can see in this demonstration flight where it's just turning, which is great, but that makes me somewhat have to feel like I got to baby it on the backhand. And when I baby it, we get this kind of a demonstration shot where it just ends up having fade to it pretty much the entire time. So on a backhand, it is nice because I know right now where I'm hitting probably 40% of my shots and getting decent power on the other 60%. This is a really nice disc to throw, and as long as there's nothing to fear on the right, I'm throwing it on a lot of backhands. And another thing you're gonna see about these distance drivers is that right now, because I just put this year like a bunch of new Raiders in the bag, some of them fill extremely similar slots because they're not really that seasoned in to have a lot of difference. This is the mold minimalization issue when you're like, oh, I'm gonna bag these and I'm gonna mold minimalize, but you put a bunch of fresh discs in the bag, they don't really do anything different, so you kind of have to use them to season them in. This Raider I have is probably the oldest Raider in the bag. Next closest to it is going to be this hybrid. It's a Lucid, forget what hybrid plastics are in it. I think it's Lucid Moonshine, but this is such a beautiful, it's probably my favorite trilogy plastic, even over like the Royal plastics. Beautiful flyer. This is, if I talked about on the Darth Maul Raider, if there's trouble on the right, this one is what I'm going to right now for that exact, like there's trouble on the right, I need to fade because it has a little bit of stand up to it, which was because it's an older Raider from when I used to throw them. But on a forehand is really where this thing shines. This is probably my furthest flying forehand disc, but it's also the most flexy. You can see here in this demonstration shot, I mean, I throw it and it easily stands up, then gets some left movement out of it, and then ends up fading out at the end. This one actually gunned in at about 425 on a forehand, and that felt like I really wasn't trying to mush it too hard, just throwing it really nice and simple. I think if I put it on a little more hyzer and yammed on it, it would stand up and move beautifully. But on a golf line, tough to lean into. So this is like backhand, 350 to 400, but I can't go right. This one's getting thrown most of the other times though. Darth Maul's getting thrown. Now I am trying to season in a replacement to get ready for Darth Maul, and that is where Sharingan comes in. And Sharingan is a fusion Raider that's brand new to the bag, and I'm not really throwing it on backhand too much. If I know that I just need reliable fade and I don't want to throw Darth Maul and I'm like on mission, let's season it in. Venom and Sharingan are flying almost picture perfect the same on backhand right now, but I do think that Sharingan is going to pass the hybrid Raider in stability pretty soon, because for most forehands, if I'm just throwing a stock forehand and I need reliable over stable, but I don't necessarily like want beef, then Sharingan's coming out and we're seasoning it. You can even go to Foundation All-Stars where I was in the distance comp and I told Hunter like, oh, you want a 350 foot forehand? Sick. Let me just go ahead and throw that. Like, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, I didn't really have to put any effort into this. I can just throw this on a nice, smooth, easy line, and it's getting 350. But the alternative to Sharingan is Rinnegan, and this Rinnegan is beautiful. I'm gonna bring this one closer to the camera so you guys can see it. Disco Dies, Justin did both the Sharingan and the Rinnegan. I love that he did like a black line on the outside of both of them. Rinnegan is an absolute beaut, but she is beef. Like, she is, okay, I need to fade and I need to get right, but I still need to push 350 to 370. Rinnegan's coming out. I love Rinnegan for that. She is a beauty. It is actually a Ricky Raider when they dropped, like when he first signed the Lucid Raiders. I'm barely ever throwing this thing on backhand. If I am, it's because my felon can't get there and I need to push it. Backhand distance for this is gonna be like 330 to like 360, and I'm not really pushing much further than that. If I really need to push a backhand further, I can honestly throw like a passion farther than I can throw this specific Raider. The other hard part is when you have a good forehand, you have to have some distance drivers in your bag that are kind of like forehand specific to unlock that distance. The Raider on that Raider on a forehand, we can get up to 400, but I mean, we're hoofing it. So that's where usually if I'm in that range and I still need the overstability, I'm going to the Defenders. This is a Fusion Defender, and you're gonna see most of the time that I'm throwing Defenders is if the wind's up and the Raiders I can't rely on, I'm gonna be throwing the Defender. This Defender in particular, I got out of a used bin, and it is really overstable, but it leans into those flexes a little more. It's always going to fight out of the flex, like you can see in this demonstration shot, but when it fights out eventually, it could, like, if there's danger in line, I think of hole 4 at New London at All Stars. I threw this shot where it flexed out, and it just flexed out a little too much for me to feel comfortable. If there was any wind up there, it would have taken even longer for it to fight out. So I really like this, and there's just situationally, I have to decide between like how much of a knife angle I can throw with this on Anheuser for a flex forehand and get it to fight out. Backhand, I mean, what these do on a backhand, Renegon Raider does just as well. So for me, there's not really much of a difference between the two of them. That takes us to the last disc in the bag, which is this Orbit, Lucid Ice Orbit Defender. Absolutely gorgeous. You can actually, I laughed because in a rain round they played, the pink from this got wet and dyed the pink onto this white Defender. But this one, absolute beef hook. I can yam on this thing on some Anheuser and know that it's gonna fight out every single time. I even, at a local course that we're here playing at, to get the eagle opportunity, you end up having to throw like this angle high into the trees, and I knew I could put it up there and it was going to fight out every time, and actually able to go for the eagle, which allowed me to get into a 3-way playoff for first at a tournament. Really, really reliable. It's kind of situational depending on these two. The flex forehands for these are both coming in at easy 400 foot. You don't really have to, like, I don't have to go like kill the thing in order to get to flex out. But once again, I'm not really throwing any of these on backhands. So that's the distance drivers. We've got 6 distance drivers in the bag, 2 molds. So that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. Like I said, I know it's a long one, but I hope I tried to explain the rationale of why I bag each disc. Honestly, I tried to make sure that I at least got a throw to demonstrate in case I like had a bad release or things like that. For instance, you can see between these 2 passion throws, I bagged certain discs because on this first passion throw, I didn't really get a hold of it and it went straight and still had some fade, which is the disc that I want in my bag. But I'm also trying to adjust for when I do actually, the form hits and the form changes hit and you get the movement like you see in this second passion throw. So I wanted to make sure that you guys, if I'm going to talk about why I bag a disc, that we actually showed why I bagged that disc instead of like, oh yeah, no, this is what it does, even though I didn't demonstrate it on the video. So I hope that was helpful. Is there any disc in the bag that surprises you that it's in the bag, or a disc that you're looking at and you're like, hey, you might want to consider this? Also, what's your thought on the stalker debate? As someone who is making content for a living, is it worth having a disc that, like, if I hype it up, other people can actually purchase? Or do I go with what's comfortable and maybe less available? Because like I said, there's still a bunch of ESP stalkers out there, and I don't see them like burning out of stock anytime soon. But I mean, it's a finite possible end of it, which is a bummer. Anyways, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting what we're doing here on the Robbie channel. Y'all, feels great to be back. Feels great to be back competing in tournaments. I'm so stoked. A couple weeks away. Bag's feeling great. Have a great rest of your day. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're gonna leave you with the birdie.